Why do we watch scary movies? Is it for the gag, tear, blood, and gore? Perhaps the thrill and excitement felt through our sympathetic reaction to terror? Or maybe the compelling themes and plots associated with stories best told through the medium of fear? Scary movies, to some, are like the hot peppers of film. They're hard to get down and leave an unpleasant sensation in the pit of your stomach for a while afterward. But we watch them because there is something to take from them. And that's because there are so many kinds of scary movies and ways to be scared. Here's a list of 10 of our recommended scariest movies to watch. Let's go! The Exorcist. Classic horror. Horror as a genre is built off of many things, but horror movies are built on successes of the past. All of the most classic horror movies have led to inspirations that continue to this day, and one of the most imitated and referenced horror films is the original Exorcist. What makes it classic is how eternal it is. Not everyone believes in demons, but anyone can believe that having a loved one show symptoms of an illness, going out of their way to fix it, and failing in all pursuits is a scary thing to live through. When they start puking out the pea soup and throwing the priest out of a second-story window, it goes from concerning to terrifying. Hereditary. This psychological horror film explores the dark secrets of a family's ancestry and the sinister fate they may have inherited. The story follows the Graham family, who begin to unravel after the death of their secretive and secluded matriarch, Ellen. Annie Graham, an artist who constructs miniature dioramas, grapples with her complex relationship with her late mother and the overwhelming sense of grief that envelopes her family. Alongside her, her husband Steve tries to maintain stability. Her son Peter struggles with typical teenager pressures, and her daughter Charlie exhibits peculiar and unsettling behavior that escalates following her grandmother's death. As the family attempts to cope with their loss, a series of increasingly bizarre and terrifying occurrences begin to unfold around them. Desperate for answers, Annie attends a support group where she meets Joan, who introduces her to a world of seances. Driven by a desire to communicate with her deceased loved ones, Annie unwittingly invites an evil force into her home. Poltergeist 2. Camp horror. The original Poltergeist is the stuff of childhood horror. Built off of a fascinating premise, it went on to inspire many pieces of work and its own sequel. The sequel is different. While it still has its moments of dread and fear, they are far beyond the regular spectrum of belief. Horror that goes beyond the veil of what we can believe, even for a movie, is where it gets fun. It's shocking how far it goes, and that's what makes it great can be fun. Suspiria. Italian horror. Italians have been foundational in cinema for decades, from the spaghetti westerns to giallo, filming style of surreal and stylish horror movies. The most well-known cult horror of Europe's boot is Suspiria, a dreadful tale of a young girl in a dance school that may in fact be a harvest ground for witches of terrible power. The remake is a unique, modern take that ups the visual horror, but removes the Italian charm, which makes it worth remembering. The Ring. Eastern horror. Movies from another culture can be strange. The further from home, the stranger they are. And Japan is as far as you can get from American concepts. While the American remade The Ring in 2002 has some elements of the ethereal, ever-present sort of horror that was bespoke in the original, the 1998 Japanese version shows how another culture handles an untamable, unshakable, and unpreventable terror, with just about as much death and a bit more depth. Interview with a Vampire. Gothic horror. Nothing says Gothic like the Victorian era. Gothic horror comes from another time when the real fear came from thinking about the story itself. It wasn't about jump scares, gore, and special effects, although those help in any movie's case. Interview with a Vampire touches on that fearful factor of considering what evil people could get up to if they never had to fear death. How can their problems last a century or be resolved in one bloody, violent day? and what might happen to you if you got in their way. The others. Twist horror. The Sixth Sense is often regarded as having the greatest twist of all time, but it's not a scary movie. It's about ghosts, but it's more of a drama. The Others is about ghosts haunting in an old Victorian house in the early 20th century. What begins as a fretful mother protecting her children amounts to a mystery, a thriller, and then a shocking end twist that recontextualizes the entire movie in a new, more dreadful way. A Nightmare on Elm Street 3, Dream Warriors. The story picks up a few years after the events of the original film, diving back into the dark and twisted world of Freddy Krueger, a serial killer who wields a glove armed with razors to kill his victims in their dreams, which results in their real-life deaths. The film introduces a group of teenagers who are patients at Weston Hills Psychiatric Hospital, each struggling with disturbing nightmares that put them at risk of becoming Freddy Krueger's next victims. These individuals, including Kristen Parker, who possesses a unique ability to pull others into her dreams, share a common trait. They are all surviving children of the people who originally banded together to murder Freddy Krueger. Jeepers Creepers. Slasher horror. A modern classic of the early 2000s takes the formula of a slasher and attaches it to a brutal, unapologetic villain. The Creeper is a comparable old legend type of horror, marking an entire superstition area. Watching the young heroes get picked off one by one and learning the reason why brings about a revolting sense of powerlessness, knowing this creature will go on to kill again, 3 more times in fact. The Shining. It's said no top movie list is complete without this movie, and it is such a broad and open topic thanks to Kubrick's visual mastery of intentional detail that it permeates the public consciousness to this day. So, is it the best psychological horror? Haunting horror. The inability to perfectly pin the exact meaning of The Shining lends it to being the best meta-horror I can think of. That and the story of its production. For Stephen King to see his story completely changed, altered, and effectively remade in someone else's vision, and then to become more popular than its source material by miles is every creator's worst fear. Well, that's a wrap for this episode of our must-watch movie recommendations. If you enjoyed this video, remember to hit that thumbs up, subscribe to our channel, and tap the notification bell to stay updated. If you're interested in watching any movie on this list, check out the links in the description below. For even more geeky goodness, head over to geekversemagazine.com. Thanks for watching, and as always, keep it geeky.